here. Is this on? Everyone can hear me? Perfect. Excellent. Well, just for starters, thank you so much, Dr. Crook, for having me, and everyone else who's been mentioned. It really is an honor to be here, especially amongst such great company and a lot of people who are honestly very accomplished, incredible public speakers. I'm kind of the opening act, so if this doesn't go well, then I promise it gets better from here. The world is an incredibly small place. A couple of the people coming up here, Chip Conley, who you guys are going to hear from later, he and I became friends or friendly probably 4 or 5 years ago. Ironically, we serve a Joie de Vivre branded cocktail at all his hotels, and I've read all his books. I mean, he was actually my favorite speaker at the TED conference a few years ago, so very lucky to have him here. And then Tom Scott is another example. This is kind of a funny small world story. A former employee of his was a friend of mine from New York when I moved back and was just starting Veer. It was literally a white paper, and Tom met up with me for no good reason because we didn't know each other. He had no reason to, and sat down and I showed this guy, who doesn't even drink, by the way, anymore, bottle designs of a company I was thinking about starting, and it was purple, it was green, it was this, it was that, and he gave me his off-the-cuff intuition, which was incredibly accurate and incredibly helpful, and we haven't seen each other in a bunch of years, so it's kind of funny how it all very much comes full circle. So, is mine, keep going? Okay, perfect. There we go. I think just before I start, Michael hasn't said this to me, but I think part of the reason of him having me here is so that hopefully some of you guys go, if he can do it, I can do it, and if one person walks away from today feeling like that, I mean, I think that's honestly the goal, because about 8 years ago now, a bunch of things came together and coalesced to, I guess, inspire me. But I remember distinctly when I was working at Goldman Sachs, and I'll give you my background in a minute, sitting at a meeting with Kevin Plank. How many people know who Kevin Plank is? Founder of a company called Under Armour, sports gear, now, in my mind, the new Nike. Sitting in a meeting with him, he's 32 years old at the time, same age as I am now, ish, 33, and going, all right, he's smart, great product, but if he can do it, why can't I? So hopefully everyone walks away, feeling that or having that thought as it goes through their mind. Before I get into it here, just by show of hands, I don't feel too good about this room, but I always ask before I speak, who's heard of Veer? All right, good number of hands. I think a lot of them probably after the program came out, but I'll take it anyways. Gonna go through a couple new slides that I haven't done before, so please be gentle. I think compared to some other people, it's important I give you guys a little background, a little framework for what Veer is, so you understand how it fits in this SEER model, and then hopefully it'll be more about Q&A and get interactive. A little background about me. The other less handsome guy in the picture is my younger brother, Carter. We have an incredibly similar, boringly same background, originally from Chicago. My parents had a rule, you can do whatever you want, you can go wherever you want for college. I played sports and was pretty lucky to have my choice to a degree. And they said you can go anywhere you want as long as it's a state that doesn't touch Illinois. Somehow that manifested itself in going to Columbia, New York, and loving being in New York City. And as you often do when you don't know what you're going to do in New York, you end up in finance. So did investment banking at Goldman Sachs. With a specialty in, if you want to call it that, in consumer products. So as I mentioned, worked on some really big transactions, everything from the Procter & Gamble Gillette merger, which was and I think still is the biggest consumer products merger to date. But then worked with, for me, what was incredibly interesting, a bunch of quote-unquote startups by Goldman standards. I already mentioned Under Armour. Just being around a company like that, a culture like that, people where when I first started going down there, you guys couldn't even believe what their operations and their back end looked like. I mean, I've never seen anything like it still, in a way that was kind of chaotic and disorganized, yet the culture and the ethos and the product, you just knew it was going to be huge, and it has. Vitamin Water, I worked with them on their first deal, and regardless of what you think of the product or anything, you can't argue that they have a great story and people bought into it, and it went from there. So it was a combination of those factors, I think, that really kind of had that entrepreneurial spirit in me, but it was laying dormant. I graduated in 2001, so it was a really interesting time to graduate. Arguably, so you interview for a lot of these jobs in fall of 2000, arguably the easiest time to ever be getting a job. The economy was great. I was hoarding job offers. I think I had like 8 or 9 and was just being greedy about it. And then by the time I started, it was one of the worst times to be starting right post 9/11. So things, I guess, kind of changed quickly with that. But it was a really interesting time because when the economy was better, remember saying to my dad, you know what, I don't really want to be analyst number 198 at Goldman Sachs. I want to do my own thing. And he's like, okay, what does do your own thing mean? And I didn't know anything, so I just was like, I don't know, it doesn't feel right. And we did this little session where we sat down, and my parents are very supportive, and they listened, and he said, okay, we'll support you whatever we do, but let's just take a quick inventory. You have no real relationships, no real contacts to speak of in the grand scheme of things, and no real money. So people have done it on less, but you might want to keep that in the back of your mind. So that stuck with me, and I only bring that up not to discourage anyone, because now it's easier than ever with the Kickstarters of the world and everything else. But I think that my dad reminded me. I actually forgot that I had kind of had that talk with him, and as I went to start Veer, he said, remember we had this talk? And I said, yeah. And so it reminded me that those entrepreneurial feelings were definitely there, just kind of laying dormant, and needed someone or something or a catalyst to spark that. All right, so let's get into it. I'll just give you a little more about our company, and I'm going to show you a couple slides on Veer, because like I said, I think it sets the framework. We started originally in late 2007, literally selling out of the back of our car. We got a special license here in California, self-distribute. I dropped off every first case, my brother every first case, in 25 or so of the hotter spots around Los Angeles, and then it went from 25 to 50 to 75. I think we got up to about 100 accounts on our own, and then decided we were incapable of running a third-party logistics company, and went out and got a bigger distributor. But I mean, it starts that small. It started as one account, one person, the only person drinking it, because no one's ever heard of it, is of course me, then me and my brother, I think our one intern, and then your friends, and eventually friends of friends. So now we're in all 50 states. We're on cruise lines like Celebrity. We're in flight with Virgin America Airlines. I'm going to touch on that a little more in a second. A little bit of where we've come. Last year, we were recognized as one of the Inc. 500 fastest growing private companies in America. We also won this Rising Growth Award in the alcohol industry that they give annually to the top 2 or 3 fastest growing independent brands. So long way to go to be the next fill in the blank, but I think we're proud of where we've come from selling that one case out of the back of our car. This is kind of an interesting slide. This is one of my new ones, so be gentle on it. But I think this one's important that I put in here, because to me, this is the way of where the world's going. I'll give you a little analogy from another guy who I really look up to. He's walking through a supermarket probably about 9 months ago, and he's one of these guys who's just looking around and always thinking, always asking questions. And he said, where's the world going? And he really feels like the world is going better. And better means different things to different people and different things in different industries. But he has the epiphany as he's walking down the aisle and looks at the ketchup section and goes, this is crazy. I'm sure you guys see it wherever you're from, whether it's here or anywhere else. All these little burger places are popping up. I live here in LA, so it's Umami, it's all these other places. And we're going to these couture burger places, and then we're still putting Heinz on our burger. It makes no sense. So he said, that's it. I'm going home, researching, and finding my next investment. It's going to be a ketchup brand. And I don't know exactly how it's doing, but I know the one he invested in. I've seen it a lot more places. And so I think that's kind of a good summary of where I see things going. Just being around the entrepreneurial circles. Pop Chips, who knows Pop Chips? Does anyone not know Pop Chips? Raise your hand if you don't know. All right, one. All right, I'm going to tell Pat. So he's a good friend of mine. He's in my YPO chapter here. But I think, you look at what he's done, Pop Chips. A better way to be a potato chip, pop, not fried, and everything else. Virgin America, which we're served on, a better way to fly. Who's flown on Virgin America? I think we had this discussion last night, because I think some people are saying that they just flew on it. Some people are flying on it in a couple weeks. Regardless of what you think of it, I don't think you can argue that it's a different experience. In my opinion, better, but that's obviously subjective. I think what they've done is great, from the vibe, the red, the TV screens, the ambience. And then another really close friend of mine who just got married a couple weeks ago, Blake Mykoski, who founded Tom's Shoes. We were trying to get to come today. He would have definitely been a better opening speaker than me. But I think just giving people like a better way to feel emotionally connected, a better way to shop. And I didn't know exactly how to put it up there and articulate it, but being a one-for-one company, I mean, that's a better way to live, right? To feel like I bought something, which consumed something, which obviously isn't great in many ways for the planet, but we also gave something. And I think just creating those connections are really important. So this slide has kind of come together, but I swear really the bigger part of our vision when we first started was we want to be a better way to drink in the spirits category. And there's no one out there really trying to do it, and this was part of our thesis 5 years ago when we started thinking about it, because I was what I'll call a very average consumer living in New York City. drinking Red Bull vodkas, Grey Goose sodas, because I was usually just, doing what my friends drank, and thought, I'm really bored with my drinking experience. There's got to be other people, and my friends are, and that was kind of simply the genesis of Veer. So what is the brand, just to put it out there? How do we think we're a better way to drink in the spirits category? Better product, better company. As Michael said, it always starts with the product. Our main product, Veer, was the first organic alcohol infused with acai. And now we're expanding into other ingredients, other things. Better ingredients, and to me, better ingredients means better sourcing, organic, all natural. It means better taste profile. And then, as you guys are well aware, better kind of company. Larry mentioned in the outset, but we give $1 for every bottle off our top line. Huge part of our margin that goes back to the rainforest to help fund the sustainable farming project we have. It goes to everything like this little bracelet I'm wearing. These are seeds of an acai berry. We call it our sustainability bracelet. When we're done harvesting these, which is now up to, I think, 1 million of these a day with a co-op we share with some other guys. But they literally, you'd go down to the rainforest and there'd be mounds taller than the ceiling of these things just sitting there. Now they're being used to thatch roofs, do whatever. But when an average Amazon basin worker makes $4 US a day and we pay him $8, as someone said to me the other day, oh, so you're paying him $4 more. Like, no, we're doubling their standard of living. And $4 makes a huge difference when you're only making $4. So it's little things like that. By the end of this year, we'll have given about $500,000 back to the project down there. I think we feel really good that that's actually made an impact, really changed people's lives. We were the first, I think, spirits brand to really put out what I'll call like a real CSR report. In the alcohol space, CSR reports have been traditionally, please drink responsibly in really big letters, and then 3 other pages of pictures in the end. And we really tried to put a stake in the ground, say this is what we do, this is what we're about, this is different. We have the first distillery out in Idaho where we were able to get some tax credits to have a distillery that's powered by renewable wind energy. Not earth-shattering for probably most of you here, but for the spirit space, it really is. We offset our whole carbon footprint, members of 1% for the planet. We are members of B Corp. I think you guys talk about that in a lot of Michael's class. I mean, what they're doing is absolutely phenomenal. So I think it's important to mention that and to give you guys a little framework for what Veer is. I'm not going to get into the self-promoting slide, but that's kind of some of the stuff I mentioned, press, everything. I do want to touch on this one because I think this is important. Just one of the things that obviously is a focus today is creativity. And I think, so this is a new product we just launched called Vitafruit by Veer. First line of organic and all-natural, ready-to-drink cocktails. So you just shake them, pour over ice. We took a couple, I guess, good-selling Veer cocktails, a lemonade, a margarita, and a Cosmo. And Veer is the base, so it's like a pre-mixed Veer and lemonade, just to give you guys the gist. But the way this came about was, who's heard of Bethany Frankel's product, Skinny Girl? All right, good number of you, right? So without boring with all the details, she started it. It went through the roof. She reinvigorated this ready-to-drink category probably about 2 years ago, and Jim Beam bought them. And what they did is they then rolled it out into tons of other flavors. The sangria, now they have Skinny Girl vodka, now they have Skinny Girl wine. And in an attempt to be different, so that happened. And then the next thing that happened is every big company, Bacardi says we're doing a skinny mojito, Jose Cuervo's doing a skinny margarita. And we looked at that category and went, perfect, that's what we want to go into because we can really innovate. Everyone's looking left, and I wouldn't go so far to say we're looking right, but we're looking a little bit left of center because skinny, for one thing, we didn't really feel like it's an ownable term. Calories are how you measure the skinny part, and percentage of alcohol they're directly related. So meaning if you just lower the percentage of alcohol, the calories come down, and that's what all these people are doing. It's 60 calories, it's 50 calories, it's 40 calories. But my analogy I always use is it's 8-minute abs, it's 7-minute abs, it's 6.5-minute abs. At some point, your abs aren't getting the same workout. So, for us, it was like, okay, great, skinny is here to stay, but it's not really skinny it's here to stay, in my opinion. It's just the consciousness, and I think that's a lot of what SEER's about. It's just the awareness factor. Even if you're a truck driver who crushes a 12-pack of beer every day after work, your behavior might not change, but my thesis is you're more aware than ever that you're doing it and that it's probably not a good thing. And I think, for us, it was important to do a product that was in this category, but wasn't focused on skinny. Without it, we're not competing with Skinny Girl. It was more just how we developed the product. But she's, her product, she said it was all natural. It wasn't. It got pulled from Whole Foods. We really wanted to be the first one to, I guess, have that credibility and say, we are really all natural. We are organic. It's funny, I think the organic really kind of bolsters the all natural. And it's still, by the way, lower calorie, but it hopefully tastes a whole lot better. So I think that's just a little example of a way that you can try to think outside the box and do something in an industry that probably more so than anyone who you'll hear speak today is very regulated, very strict. It's tough to sometimes think outside the box, but we've tried to do it. We just started about 60 days ago, and we've already sold more in the first 60 days, and I sold the whole first 2 years of Veer. So hopefully off to a good start. How does this fit the SEER model? I think I've hit on all these pretty much, but product and service, I can't say this enough. I mean, because when we first started, I would go to every green conference. Actually, the first time I met Chip Conley was at, what is it called, LOHAS, Lifestyles of Health and Sustainability Conference. And you're just blown away by being there. And I'll be totally honest, I was there with some companies where you hear them speak, and they're great speakers, and their ideas are great. There's a guy who shall remain nameless who was on the circuit as like the keynote speaker at every green conference, yet his business went under relatively quickly. I mean, in like less than 5 years. And without dancing on anyone's grave, I think the point is that the business model has to work. That was kind of my wake-up call. That I need to stop going to these green conferences for a second and make sure my business works. Because if you're out there and it's great to be giving back, great to be doing things, but easier to do good when you're doing well, so to speak. Easier to grow the pot, have a sustainable business, and then give back from there. So I think that's obvious. You guys all know that. We've talked about our CSR and environment, and then financial strength. Alcohol is a very tough business, but if you get it going, there are very, very good margins, and it can get very profitable once it scales. I wouldn't know anything about that yet, but so I've heard and read in some public documents. So why alcohol? This is kind of my wrap it up slide here, and then I'd love to have some questions. Why alcohol? Risk, creativity, mistakes. I think is going back to creativity and innovation. I mean, it's amazing. Like, think of whatever you guys drink. For those of you who drink, and those of you who don't, I'm very jealous. But for those of you who drink, think of the core categories: vodka, gin, tequila, rum. I mean, those have all been around for centuries, literally centuries in some shape or form. I mean, maybe tequila wasn't popular in the U.S., but it certainly was in Mexico or whatever it is, pisco in Peru. It is shocking how little innovation there's been in the alcohol industry. It goes back to pre-prohibition. And that's one thing that to me as a category was really attractive, was looking at something that was due for a change and trying to be that spark, trying to be that catalyst, trying to be that something different in what I thought was a pretty stale industry. I think I heard it said best once by a friend of mine who you guys have maybe read about, named Eric Ryan, who started Method. But their whole thing was they were, like a lot of you guys probably in business school, were looking at industries that just hadn't kept up and hadn't become progressive with the times, and they went originally to cleaning products and changed the bottle shape, changed the packaging, changed the whole outlook, and they've done great. So I think that's kind of what what we were trying to do there. As far as risks, I think the risk part is really funny, because I always sat there and went, gosh, this is crazy. I'm working at Goldman Sachs. I'm going to leave that to do this. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think you guys see it now. There's probably not many more overused words than entrepreneur. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. And one of my big theories in life is that everything's all about rationalization. If you can rationalize it, you'll probably do it, good behavior or bad behavior. And when I really sat down and rationalized it, I was 27, and it was like, what risk am I really taking? I don't have a family. Financially, I can do it. If this all goes pear-shaped, I'll probably end up, sitting where some of you guys are in business school, and life will start over. But I don't think I'll have any regrets. So I would encourage you guys to think about it, because I think it always seems like a big leap of faith. But when you really get down to it, a lot of times it's a lot less than you think. My friend from Tom's, I mentioned, Blake, wrote a book called Start Something That Matters, that we were fortunate enough to have a chapter in. But I think it's a great primer for just thinking about how to do things. And I'm in the chapter on facing your fears and taking risks. And like I said, when you really distill it down, it really wasn't much. And it is funny, though. Gentleman over here, David Cole, I had the pleasure of meeting last night, who has incredible, infinite amount of wisdom. I might get your quote wrong, David, but you basically said something to the effect of, there is like what I'll call ignorance is bliss, or I think you called it an ignorance chasm in being an entrepreneur, meaning it is scary how little I knew when I went into this industry. And I always, as I told him last night, I always used to joke, had I have known then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have done it. And I joked, but I probably wouldn't have. But I'm kind of the type, I consider myself to just be like we have this little phrase we use around our company called GSD, get, you can figure out the S, D, done. And it's just do it, just hop in and do it. And that's just kind of how I think you have to be. And so when I got into alcohol, people are like, I've done a couple interviews, and like, well, how do you start an alcohol business? And it's like Google, and more Google. I knew nothing. I literally knew one guy who is a partner at a small alcohol brand. Started Googling distilleries, and it's just one of those, if you're MacGyver and you're nimble and you're getting around, it's like one shoe drops, the other one follows. But it literally just started with leads of friends, and it's amazing when I look back how lucky we got to be able to get some sage advice, get put in touch with good people. But I think it's a common misconception that you really have to know anything about what you're doing. I should have mentioned this, but what really, I'll have to go back and review the tape. That probably came out wrong, but you get the point. The point is that, but here's what I knew about the alcohol industry. Here's what inspired me to specifically do alcohol was all the things I said, the consumer behavior and me being bored with my drinking experience. But I worked very peripherally on a merger of two big boring alcohol companies, Allied Domecq, Pernod Ricard, spring, summer of 2005. And in the process of sitting in my little, it wasn't even an office, like a bullpen cubicle, flipping through 10Ks, I just thought, wow, this is an industry that's ripe for innovation. And as you guys all know now, because I think people are a lot more sophisticated, reading a 10K doesn't give you much in terms of starting a business. It's great on paper and gives you, oh, we could do this, and if we do this. But that reading those 10Ks and the things I thought then versus what I do now could not be more different. So I think it's incredible to think how far we've come for not knowing much. One of my favorite quotes on the creativity front here, as Henry Ford once said, if I would ask people what they wanted, they would have said a faster buggy when he invented the Model T. And I think it's so true. There's two ways to do it. You really find that need, or you just create something and do if you build it, hopefully they will come. So I think that's a little bit what we tried to do because we wanted to be something different outside the box, but still within the confines of alcohol. In terms of mistakes and blunders, I started to list some. I started to think of some anecdotes. It's more, when we first started, it's not did you make mistakes because you made so many. It's really more about, I feel very fortunate that we didn't make any mistakes that were too big to sink the ship. Those are the only mistakes you remember. If the ship goes down, you're like, yep, that was the wrong decision. There was a lot of wobbling on that ship. There was a lot of holes in the ship. There was water coming overboard. But and literally I have funny stories. Everything from our first shipment of glass was already on its way from Italy. And the government, which next business I start will not involve the government because they're scary and unpredictable. They said, oh, by the way, remember how we approved that product of yours? If you could just change that one word, it would be great. I'm like, change that one word? I would love to. It's just kind of hard because the bottle's already been fired and decorated. It's on a boat from Italy. And they're like, no, we need you to change that one word. And it sounds funny now, but it was tense for a week, and these people don't get back to you, and you don't know. And if they had not budged and not changed that one word, that was my promise to my investors was that I would put in every dollar to start this thing, and until we sold the first bottle, none of my investment kicked in. Who knows if someone would have come to the table. But if we were not able to sell those bottles, we wouldn't have had a business. We would have had nothing. We had nothing. I took what was in the bank. And other things like we had a boat. The next shipment of glass after that they used to come into the port of Montreal, hit an iceberg 50 feet, supposedly an iceberg. I never got pictures of this, but supposedly hit an iceberg 50 feet from the shore. It's like, how did you not see the iceberg? And so supposedly what happened, this is I'll never know the truth, but supposedly it hits the iceberg, and then in order to stop the ship from going down, they actually kind of somehow, like, I'm picturing like lasso or tethering this to the iceberg to keep the ship afloat. And it sat there for like 2 months. And meanwhile, I'm like, all our accounts are like out of product because we're cutting it close because we don't have working capital and everything else. I'm like, I was like, let me go out there and we'll just get people to reel it in. But there's things like that are out of your control. There's things like that are in your control. But like I said, there are so many. You really can't be afraid of making mistakes. The good news is in today's society with the digital things and everything else, I think you make a mistake, you own up to it. You make a mistake, there's so many ways to take it back, to start over, to pivot, that I think it's really, like I said, just about not making mistakes that really sink the ship. So with that, I don't want to do too much talking. I would love to turn it over to you guys. I really appreciate you having me, and I'd love to take some questions if I didn't talk too long.
Okay, do we have some questions?
Yeah.
Either side of the room. Courtney?
Anyway, over there.
Got it. Well, you guys calling people, I hate picking favorites.
Yeah. It is near.
Hi, I so appreciated your presentation. Thank you.
I saw you nodding a couple of times, so I appreciate that. Makes me know people are awake.
A little encouragement. So obviously you have a passion for innovating in a new space, but what drove you to also build in the social and environmental components? Was it just that it gave you a competitive advantage, or was there something more to that?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that it's a little bit of everything. Like, I think it's a little bit like, I call it a little bit like working out. Whether you do it because you think it's better for you inside, meaning your internal health, whether it's better because you look, whether you do it because it makes you look better on the outside, kind of doesn't matter. It all goes toward the same good. I would say that, yes, I was not naive to the fact that I thought it would make sense and it would be a major competitive advantage for us. Having said that, I kind of call myself a new age tree hugger. The term that someone once sent me a couple years ago, it hasn't really taken off, but is SCUPY, socially conscious, upwardly mobile yuppie. So I accept all those except for the yuppie part, but I think it's a good phrase, and I'd say it's funny, again, you have all these, part of what's great about starting something is you learn all these things about yourself, right? And you harken back to things and you go, oh, maybe that actually impacted me when I didn't think it did. My parents were the type, they were not tree huggers by the definition. They were not hippies, although my name's Courtney, my brother's name's Carter, my sister's name's Hallie, so it's been theorized they were doing something. But I think the point is they were really just into frugality and just being that mindfulness of what affects one directly affects everyone else indirectly. I can remember getting screamed at as much as anything for leaving the fridge door open or not turning a light off when I left a room, and I was like, did you really just say you're going to spank me for leaving the light on? And it was almost, I mean, they were that serious about those sort of things. So I think, again, not till years later, but I think it had an impact for sure, and it was something that was important to us. And you know, it just feels better. I mean, part of doing something is that if I really thought I was putting alcohol into people's bodies and poisoning them, I couldn't do that. I don't feel good about it. I genuinely feel like people are going to always drink. Let's give them a better option. And that, like I said, means a better product, and that means a better company. Prohibition didn't work. Our company is founded on about 5 things. I'm not going to mention them all here, but you know, unfortunately, drinking is one of them. So let's give them a better option, which I don't think has been done.
Courtney, I have a question for you.
Yes.
So we talk about the tragedy of choice and these different values, and the last question was excellent in terms of you know, embedding these values into your business. But in real world, like some of these stories you told us, like in the beginning, you had to make decisions often that were strictly financial, right? That's the tragedy of choice. We talk about it. But I'm curious as to the customer acquisition side of it. Are there people that buy your product that buy it because of the values that are embedded in it, such as the environmental stuff that you're doing and the social part of it? Is that actually helping with the customer acquisition and the loyalty of your customers?
The short answer is yes. This might not, you know, I think it's evolved a little bit. But what I would say, and hopefully this might not be the answer you're looking for, Michael, but it's an honest one.
I want the honest
answer.
Answer.
Is that I don't think a ton of people go, oh, Veer, it's sustainable, it's green, it's eco-friendly, give me a bottle of that. You know, our core product's $30 and our new one's $12, $13.99. The $30 bottle of alcohol is not cheap. I don't think people say, oh, it's that, and reach for it. What I think happens is, as I said, is part of the SEER model, it all starts with having a great product. And from there, if it's a great product, you know, consumer products, brands are about stories that matter, stories that create an emotional bond. And so I think people go, hopefully, this tastes good. I would drink this anyways. Veer, you know, is something that maybe is cool in certain pockets, whatever. And oh, by the way, they then do everything else. And that, I think, just really helps cement that emotional connection as a secondary reason for buying. So I think with consumers, that absolutely happens as a secondary thing once we've passed the sniff test of quality, product, or service. And then on the flip side is when we're trying to sell it in places, what I think is great to see is that even the person who could not be personally less into sustainability or consciousness, whatever you want to call it, the kind of world we're living in now, almost never that I can think of in the last couple of years has someone ever really poo-pooed it like, oh, just brush it under the rug. Might not be for them. Maybe they think their consumers at their grocery store don't care as much, but everybody, I think, is very respectful of and very cognizant of it, which is a big shift from maybe the previous 5 or 10 years.
Thank you.
We've got another question up here.
Hi, I actually wanted to speak to that question as a consumer. That our family buys your product more so because it's organic and because
Thank
of
you.
all of the sustainability factors. And I think that even when I got my dad to try it, I didn't come at him with the sustainability efforts that you do, but it's also just delicious. So you have now he'll
you.
purchase it. and he's
She's
like,
my
"Oh, I love
second
that."
cousin.
No. I just wanted to say it,
It's been years.
to speak to that. So, thanks.
No, thank you. That was very nice of you. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, there's no question there. Oh, got a question. All right.
Yeah, I gotta wonder, on the investor side,
Mm-hmm.
since you're pitching the part where you're donating a pretty large percentage of your proceeds to charity or to whatever cause, how accepting were they initially? I mean, were you heavy on the pitch where you say, off the bat, we're gonna be donating X amount, or? Because I gotta wonder. You gotta have some kind of friction against a lot of investors. They're gonna say no because all they care about is
Yeah,
the
no,
dollars.
it's a great question. I mean, I would say I was lucky because it was also when I raised money, it was ended 2006 going into 07, different time, and I don't know if we would have been able to do it and raise the amounts we did now, but that's a whole separate conversation. I think so I was lucky because my investors certainly don't leave me alone, but more so than a lot of other contemporaries that I hear. I mean, they were pretty like, we're investing in you, we trust you, you're gonna captain the ship. But I think the point is well taken, is that say an organization like 1% for the Planet that we're members of, and I'm sure everyone in this room knows, great organization, 1%. So with the sales where we're at 1% of my bottle, that's like order of magnitude like a nickel or a dime. And as a consumer messaging point, hey, a nickel from every bottle goes back to preserving different rainforest causes. It just doesn't sound that impactful. And so we were like a nickel, a quarter. We've tinkered with different stuff, but at the end of the day, just $1 seemed like something very, very concrete, albeit very big. And yeah, there's going to be a point, I think, down the road where that doesn't become doable as we get bigger. But we've done it heretofore, and I think at some point you transition to something more like 1% for the Planet, where it's just strictly by that formula. But I think it's important to realize that if you think it's going to get that momentum, it's good to do something bigger, because, like I said, it just needs to be. Consumer products are all about that game of phone tag, and if someone can't say something as simple as, oh, they give $1 for every bottle back to the rainforest, even 1% for the Planet is still not quite a well-known enough organization for that in and of itself to carry the weight.
Okay, we have one question over here, please.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
From what you've said, you really understood the financials, and you went from that knowledge to learning about the product, to then doing the planet and the people and having people get paid more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working with something where I'm starting from a completely different point, where we're starting with the workers, with the farmers, and I didn't even come up with this idea. They came to me and asked me, can you help us? And I naively said yes. I have no knowledge of business. I never thought I was going to be in business, but I'm more interested in the social impact that it would make if it works. How important is it, and how would you go about, if you didn't have the financial knowledge that you did have, because it's obvious you had it if you were working in the financial sector, how would you go about making a business work if you didn't have that component in your background? How would you have managed it, or could you have?
It's a good question. I think, to me, I'm trying to think how to answer that. I mean, I think to me, the short answer is yes, because what you're saying is you don't have as much of the finance background, but I'm telling you, when I started, I didn't know a lick about alcohol or how to do it. So to me, I mean, what makes a good entrepreneur? I think most of the people that are friends of mine that I spend time with are smarter than I am. They're better high concept thinkers, whatever the case may be. One thing I think I'm really good at is going, here's what I know, and here's what I don't know. But oh, by the way, the stuff I don't know, I know who my first call is. And so it's like kind of like being the president, literally, where I mean, how can you be that well versed on that many topics, but you have to trust that that person knows and that's who your go-to. And so I think I'm pretty good at that. So what I'd recommend, you know, other than, I don't know exactly where we are, if you know the two gentlemen here in the oversized white shirts, but they seem to know a lot of people. Had to sneak it in there. I just was hurt I didn't get one.
You're a yuppie. You're a yuppie.
I texted Dr. Crook late night last night and said, can I wear jeans, by the way? Because I've gone more to the jeans lately. He said yes, but didn't offer me the uniform. All right, so to answer your question, sorry. Hopefully that answers it, but I really think it's just about, you know, figure out who your go-tos are and certain things like that, because you don't need to be an expert on it. Honestly, now, the funny thing is my brother handles more of the finance side of the business, and you could not have a simpler Excel model than what we do with Veer. Now, you know, 4 or 5 SKUs, was 1 SKU. I mean, it's like high school kids could build it now. And I look at the spreadsheet and I get scared of it because I'm like, now, like, numbers, spreadsheets, no, I don't want to do that. Now I'm a marketer. But, you know, surround yourself with those kind of people, I would say.
Oh, got a question back here. Rob, we got you. No, but we got to get it recorded.
This whole thing's been being recorded?
Exactly,
Things
exactly.
I take back.
This is for the video.
Hi. So I had a question about the decision to become a B Corp and whether or not you've sort of seen or envisioned any tangible benefits from that.
Again, I'll give you the straight, honest answer. We joined, there was like the founding class, and we were the next class, I believe. There might have been one in between, but we were early on. I mean, I don't know the number, but there couldn't have been more than, you know, 50 or 100, and now there's, I don't want to quote the numbers, but I think closer to 500 maybe. 630. Okay, see, I knew someone would get me. That's why you always just talk in generalities. So do I think what they're doing? So I joined because I think it's the right thing to do, because I think it's a great organization. Bart and Jay, who started it, I met them years ago. We've stayed in touch. And I just felt like, gosh, they're guys, and you probably know the whole background. I mean, they don't have to be doing this, and they do. And so I just think it's the right thing, and if you believe in it. To your question, have I received any real tangible benefit from it? No. I mean, not today, but do I believe that I will 5 or 10 years from now? You know, it's an investment, and not that big a one. Although, let me tell you, they really walk the walk. When they didn't have that many, they audited, like they say, we audit 10% of our companies each year. Like in the first year we joined, we get the audit, and it's like, I mean, it wasn't too intense, but the word audit obviously just makes the hair on your neck stand up. So they come to your office and they go through all this and say, all right, did you really hire the way you said? Do you really do this? Show us this. Show us your articles of incorporation. You know, it's real. So I think there will be a really good benefit. If I had to, and I've said this to them, I think the big challenge with B Corp, there's two. There's the legislative aspect, which they seem to be well underway, which is great. And then there's the aspect of, how are you, to make it really successful, I think you're going to have to find a way to make all these companies just interact with each other more, because I haven't yet, and it's hard for me because I'm in a very polarizing industry compared to what a lot of people there are doing, but it's like, how are you going to convince the person who wants to hire a marketing agency to use the B Corp marketing agency rather than the other one you talk to? But what's interesting, and it goes back to exactly the SEER model, and I'm not answering this question, I'm just posing it. If that B Corp member, just because they're in B Corp, I also don't think you should use them just because he's in B Corp, he or she or it. You should use them because they're the best, and because they genuinely, or if it's a tie goes to the B Corp, but you have to make sure that quality's there, and I don't have enough interaction with them to know, but I think that's the key question, that they need to make sure that the quality's there so that people want to interact with each other.
Very good. One more question, another question over here, please.
You were going to talk about how you pitched to Virgin, and also have you done or thought of co-branding?
Sorry, how did I pitch to Virgin? Was the
Yeah.
one question, and then have I
The
thought of
co-branding.
co-branding with Virgin specifically?
Or in
just
general, have you thought about it?
So Virgin specifically, yeah, I probably should have mentioned a little more on that, but it's been a great partnership. We're really lucky because, again, you know, sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. We were friendly through some social circles with Branson and kind of his extended circle, and then when Virgin came out, it really aligned with what we're trying to do. Hip young airline, California local, very much about that California story. sustainability, all things that we're really trying to be as well. So it was just natural. And we've said no to some big airline partnerships. We said no to American Airlines just because, if you're honest with yourself, Virgin, I forgot who's flown on Virgin. A lot of people. Okay, right. So if you fly on Virgin, they have the touch screens, right? So you can discover Vive. If you're on Delta, I mean, why would someone discover Vive? I don't know. I mean, I don't even have the money to print the cocktail napkins and say try a Vive cocktail. I mean, Virgin, you can just discover it, and we've had some really, we consider that more like a marketing dollar because it's such a good awareness tool, and just given the alignment and the demographic with Virgin, I've probably had more good people say I tried that, including David Cole over here again, who can't say enough good things about. He told me he tried it a couple weeks ago on Virgin, and I have more good people say I tried Vive on Virgin than almost any other place, because we went into TGI Fridays yesterday, the top 100 or so. Trust me, I'm fired up about that. We've sold a ton already in the first day, but David Cole is probably not trying, someone of his caliber is probably not trying it at TGI Fridays. It's just a different consumer. So that was a great one. In terms of co-branding, yeah, I mean, that's the trick is in alcohol, when someone says we're partners, how do we figure out a way to be partners beyond just giving you free booze for events or something? And so that's always the challenge. But we have some good partnerships. I mean, like I said, we do every event for like a Tom's or a Pop Chips or a Virgin and things like that. But I think we're without overextending ourselves, the challenge is to kind of how do you be that lifestyle brand like maybe Grey Goose has become. So that's something we're looking at. We're trying to do fewer partnerships and do them better. But Virgin is one that we have done a lot of stuff with Virgin. If you not as much recently, but we do the opening of every new city they did, even things like their terminal at SFO. We've done a lot of cross-promoting digitally on Facebook, where if you're on the plane and you're using the Wi-Fi and you order a Vive cocktail and take a picture of yourself with it and then tweet it out or whatever, post it on your Facebook, you get another free Vive cocktail or something like that. Only one, because you have to drink responsibly. But, stuff like that. And funny enough, at the time, Virgin, which has a huge following, they came to us and liked what we were doing with our social media and said, can we replicate some of this, or can you help us run it? Because they felt like we were more innovative with our social media. So it's those little things like that. We did something with Virgin we've done it last 2 Earth Days, where on Earth Day they will, if you offset your carbon footprint for that flight, we co-brand it with them, and if you offset your carbon footprint that day, I think you got a Vive cocktail, or we had some other little tchotchkes like our acai bracelets or a mail-in rebate for a bottle of Vive, stuff like that. So yeah, we definitely try to co-brand as the long-winded answer.
Got a question right here.
Yeah, you kind of touched on it previously, but I'm really curious about the transitional period between when you were selling out of your car and you kind of maxed that out, and you realize you have something, your story's good, it's getting received very well, but I feel like often there then becomes either a knowledge gap or an experience gap or a reference gap to clear that hurdle. How did you clear that hurdle to get it to the next level?
The how is tough. I mean, you're certainly right. I mean, because there was a point where, honestly, part of me thinks if I kept selling to those same 100 accounts in LA, I'd probably be making, in some ways, more money than I am now, because you're just so laser focused on this one little pocket, this one little area. But obviously, that's not real life if you're trying to build a national brand. But it all depends what your goals are. But exactly to your point, and exactly to your point, and. I'll stall while I think of the answer, but I will tell you that when we're with a distributor called Southern Wine Spirits, like a $10 billion company. They're now our distributor in 35 states. When they picked up our brand, it took almost 6 months to get it back to the level of sales that we had it at our own when we were self-distributing. Why? Because, if a bottle has that much left, we knew it like that. Do you think Southern really cares when they're selling Diageo's products, when they're selling huge brands? They just have bigger fish to fry, and so you start having out of stocks. You lose that personal touch. It's sad, but it's the nature of things. I went to a place the other day, one of our first 15 Vive accounts. He had been very loyal, place in Hollywood, and he no longer carries Vive, unfortunately, because, and this is by far the exception, but just it does happen. And he stopped carrying Vive because he felt like I didn't give him any personal attention. And it's tough because, of course, I want to, but now we have 20,000 accounts around the country, and I'm in LA 5-7 days a month. And it's hard because you don't want to lose those, and it's one of the few we've lost, and it'll stick with me because it's painful because you just don't want to lose anything. You don't want anyone to feel like, you know, you turn your back on them. That's what happens when you go with the big bad distributor who's, you know, just a different animal, but that's how you get to the next level. So I don't really have an answer with the how, I don't think. I think it's more just knowing and being aware of it, and really just, I think just being adaptable is the best thing you can be as an entrepreneur, because everyone talks about the pivot. There's not a whole, when you're selling alcohol, there's not a whole lot of pivots you can do. I can't pivot to like, oh, different technology or a different widget. I mean, I'm kind of stuck with this for a while. But I think just realizing that within that, there's lots of little pivots, and just being really malleable is key.
Any more questions?
Courtney, I got a question for you. In terms, it goes to the transition part again, just and you left the investment banking job and then started Veer, right? Did you do anything to sort of mitigate that risk at all? Were you living at home? Were you know, how was your health insurance covered?
Are you getting even for the triple XL shirt comment? If you tried my mom's cooking, she's done a lot of great things, but no, there's no living home. No, but yeah, I mean, so there was about a 9-month gap between leaving Goldman, and by the time we got that took about 9 months to get the product to market. Usually a bigger company probably takes 18. We obviously singularly focus on it, so about 9. Yeah, I mean, I think we made a lot of those sacrifices mainly because we had no choice. I mean, as a person, I'm pretty frugal to begin with, and for me, I guess I could have, you know, stayed at the Ritz right out the gate and expensed it. But to me, there's something about the arc, and there's something about the journey of going, I was staying at the Best Western, and now 5 years later, I'm staying at the Ritz, which I'm still not. But regardless of how I spend my personal money, you know, it's important that our hotel policy is like $120 for Vive, and anything over, you have to get it approved. Mm-hmm. We were, not to digress, but we did this little tour about a year and a half ago now when we first got into Ruby Tuesdays, which is not big out here, but it's an 800-unit chain. And I put together this little tour where we had a great social media thing where I personally visited 100 Ruby Tuesdays in 10 days. And there's a big concentration in the Southeast, but I got into a Prius with a brand ambassador. We drove 2,500 miles, visited 100 Ruby Tuesdays in 10 days. You can do the quick math. I can still do it even though I'm scared of the spreadsheet. So, you know, 10 a day and 250 miles. I mean, that's a lot of driving. They open at 11, so we'd be at that first one at 11:01, stay till probably about 10 o'clock to hit all of them. But my point is, I was with a brand ambassador, and I know what this guy was compensated, and we were staying at a hotel where we're about 7 days in, and we had a very strict budget, and I'm like not going over that budget for anything. And he knocks on my door, and he says, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I can't do this. He's like, I'm going to the place across the street. I'll pay for it out of my own pocket. So that was, I mean, maybe I've got a little militant about it, but I think it's important because I think as long as people see that I'm willing to stay at the Roach Coach, apparently his Roach was yay big, so we splurged the last day for like a Lowe's or something, but you get the point. But I think it is important. I honestly just think it makes it more fun.
Yeah. A follow-up question to that is, as you're starting out, you're doing a product that requires, you know, obviously manufacturing and formulation and all that. Did someone help you with the formulation and the bottling? Did you find like a manufacturer that had excess space? How did you get that done? We were lucky in that our distillery was really good at craft artisanal products. So we kind of did the R&D with them. And again, it was just, we found a couple different guys. I mean, I would call these distilleries because it was kind of the cocktail napkin where, like, if you're, mind if I grab your white piece of paper? It's bad to use it. Like, I mean, it was literally cocktail napkin. It was like bottle plus acai, and we had a few other ideas for ingredients equals, you know, like that was like as sophisticated as my chemistry was. And so I said to him, all right, great, now who can do this? And I remember calling this distillery in Oregon, and the guy's like, yeah, oh, yeah, great, sounds great. I'm like, you know what acai is? Yeah, sure, you know, and I get up there, and he's like, what? He's like, I mean, I get up there and he thought I said apple or something, you know, and we had a few of those where it's like, okay, you realize pretty quickly there's only a few people that could even fathom, that knew what acai was, much less trying to figure out how to infuse that in alcohol and make it shelf stable. So yeah, you know, it's trial and error, it's guess and check, but I think after a while you play your hunches, and the next time I picked up the phone to a guy like that, I was like, I'm guessing he's not going to be right down his sweet spot. Very good.
Well.